Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Hakan and today I'll be showing you how to get started with the messaging library called MassTransit. So MassTransit provides a lot of useful abstractions on top of supported mass transport mechanisms like RabbitMQ, Azure Service Bus and Amazon SQS. And it really makes your life easier if you want to build distributed applications that use messaging. So MassTransit takes care of setting up the required broker topology on top of your messaging system. And MassTransit will take care of setting up the required queues, topics, exchanges, and so on. It also has built-in support for dependency injection, and you can use the well-known programming model from ASP.NET Core. And you can easily implement sagas and state machines. It also supports the request-response messaging pattern. Now, this is just a brief introduction into what MassTransit does for you, but let's see how to configure MassTransit in a .NET application and start sending and consuming messages. So I've got this simple web API set up with a couple of customer endpoints for creating a customer, getting a customer, and for uploading a image from customer and getting the image or getting the uploaded image. So to see how it works, let's go ahead and start the API. If I go ahead and create a customer, I'll go and send the request. I get a 200 OK and the response is a ID of 1. So if you go ahead and send the ID of 1 for the get request, I get the customer information. And then I can go ahead and upload an image for the customer. So I've got a image here uploaded from Pexels, which is a free image library. And if I go ahead and send this right now, I get a 200 OK and I can go ahead and get the image. So I send this request and then I'll get a pretty big image right now. And today's goal is actually whenever I go ahead and call this API or this endpoint, that I get a little small thumbnail image instead of this big image. So I'll be using MassTransit for that to send a message after the picture has been uploaded, a resize image message, so that the consumer of this message can go ahead and resize the image, save it, and then after whenever I call this endpoint, that I get a little small thumbnail image instead of this big image. So to start implementing messaging with MassTransit, let's first go ahead and install the MassTransit package. And we'll search for MassTransit. And let's try this one, MassTransit. Let's go ahead and install this. So after installing the MassTransit NuGet package, let's go ahead and configure the services by saying builder.services.add MassTransit. And this method accepts a delegate to configure some options. So we can say options. And then first let's start with options.set kebab case endpoint name formatter to create some endpoint names which are more human readable. Next, we can configure the message transport we want to use. In this case, we'll be using the in-memory transport. So we'll say options.using in-memory. And this method also takes a delegate. We'll provide it two arguments, saying context and config. And then in the delegate, we'll say config.configure endpoints and provided the context argument. So the add MassTransit method will configure all underlying services, and I'm additionally configuring the endpoint names, and that I want to use the in-memory transporter. Once you start building real distributed applications, you'll have to replace it with using the RabbitMQ or Azure Service Bus or Amazon SQS. Next, what we'll need is a message contract and a consumer, so we can publish a message and then consume it somewhere and do some actual work with that message, and in this case, resizing an image. So let's start by defining a message contract by adding a new class. Call it image resize message. So MassTransit recommends that you use either a interface class or a record for your message types. And the suggested way to define your properties is by creating an explicit property instance. So I'm going to create a public string val path, which will give a default value of string.empty. And I'll also make it init only instead of giving it a public setter. And the main reason why MassTransit suggests that you define an explicit setter on your properties of your messages is because of serialization and deserialization when publishing over the message bus. Having a public setter makes this a non-issue, and this is why it's the suggested approach. Next, we'll have to actually publish this message so a consumer can actually consume the published message. And we'll do that by going to our customer endpoints, and inside of the post method where our image is being uploaded, we'll inject the iPublish endpoint interface. So we'll say iPublish endpoint, which is called the publish endpoint. And next, after the image has been uploaded, we'll say await publish endpoint.publish, and we'll provide it the resize image message as argument. So we'll say new image resize message file path is file path. Next is creating an actual consumer so that the work can be done with the message. So we'll go ahead and create a new folder called consumers, and in here we'll create a new consumer. So let's call it image resize consumer. And this consumer will inherit from the iConsumer interface. And as a generic argument, we will give it the message type. So that will be image resize message. Let's go ahead and implement the interface. So inside of this consume method, we have to write our actual resize implementation. For that, we'll be using a NuGet package from the 6 labels library, which makes it easy for resizing images. So I'll start installing the 6 labels library by searching for 6labels.image_sharp, which is this one. Let's go ahead and install it. Next, in our consume method, we can extract the file path from the context. So we'll say for file path is context dot, then the context is the message property. So this message property is our image resize message, and on that we have the file path property. Next, to actually resize our image, we can use the 6 labels functionality. So we'll say using for image is await image.load async, and then provided the file path. And then we can say image.mutate and provided a delegate, and then say x.resize, and in here we'll give it the height and width of the image we want. So we'll say 200 and 200, so 200 by 200. And to actually save the image, we'll say await image.save async and give it the same file path, so to overwrite the original image, and we'll be only left with the thumbnail image. And one last thing is that we need to register our consumer, and we'll do that inside of the add MassTransit method by saying options.add consumers and provided the assembly. So we'll say type of program.assembly. So now our consumer has been registered and should be working fine. Let's go ahead and start the API and see if we're getting thumbnail images. So we'll start by uploading an image again. So click send, we'll get a 200 OK. And right now, instead of a big image, we should get a little thumbnail image. So let's go and try it out. And there it is, there's our resized image. So our messaging has worked. So what's happening is that we're calling our upload endpoint and we're uploading an image, and after the upload, we're publishing an image resize message. And our image resize consumer is actually waiting for that message, consumes it, the transporter delivers it to the consumer, and the image gets resized, saved, and after that we get the thumbnail image. So there you have it, that's how to get started with the MassTransit library. In this case, we're just using a simple in-memory transporter. But when you start developing real distributed applications, you replace this with the RabbitMQ, Azure Service Bus, or the Amazon SQS services. But the nice thing of this MassTransit library is that you don't have to change any implementation code. All you have to do is change the transporter, and MassTransit will take all of the internal configurations under the hood. So guys, there you have it. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.